Slight change of venue as we leave our beloved to tidy up our house. Rock Lava highlighted that a TED Talk got taken down because it referred to a field of consciousness or some such. And this is perfect, an excellent lead into our next segment, which is on a number of elements, but essentially the religious model of science. We've seen how science has been touted as the only source of authority to trust in the health issue, for example. And we've seen how we've had the high priests of science or medicine, including high priests who aren't even doctors like Bill Gates, have told us what the truth is, and the entire machinery of the state has been engaged to shut down anyone who's not compliant with that truth. And if we go back to the origin of science, very much like the evolution of empires that we discussed, science is the child of religion. It grew up under the protection of a religion, though it was very much the rebellious child. The whole point was that the church was spouting what these early, or fairly late actually, if you go back to Aristotle and what have you, Archimedes, but if you go back, they were the early scientists, and no doubt there were scientists before them, but the Newtons of the world, that towering figure, and Newton of course was himself an alchemist and what have you, so it's kind of ironic that science seems to think that no, we're only going to do the sensible stuff, we're not going to touch any of this weird stuff, when their founder was very much into the weird. But there you go. And he also believed, I believe he was a very strong believer in God. But the model of science was, hang on a minute, we're not going to go on what the church says, we're going to go on what we can see and observe and what have you. So they were very much the rebellious child that said, we're not going to have any of this God stuff, we're only going to do what we can see and observe. And the limitation, of course, is that it means that they are operating from a very limited model. But it's great. It has been incredibly successful, incredibly powerful. But it is always a limitation which they impose upon themselves. And there's a couple of things that come off that where it becomes, unfortunately, a little bit harmful. All due to human nature. There's no reason for science itself to be harmful. But if you make a bomb that kills people, obviously, that can be harmful science. But in terms of the moral aspect, it doesn't have to be science, it's what humans do with it. And one of the things is the arrogance of science that says, no, you're a nutter, because we haven't figured that out yet. And then when a scientific experiment proves that consciousness has an effect, prayer has an effect, whatever it might be, that you can affect the nature of your body, the placebo effect, just believing that you have taken something that will have an effect on your body, and it does have an effect on your body. Consciousness is clearly a factor in how we can actually change the nature of our being, and then that's authorized once the scientist says it. Well, that's pretty damn arrogant, because my perspective is rather more that I'm an analyst, my brain works, it's a pretty good brain, I reckon. I don't need faith, I don't need belief, I basically operate from experience, and that experience has given me access to some very fascinating sources and levels which are not authorized. So science is very much or rather science as practiced by the official science, the tenured science, the paid science, is very much based on this kind of environment where we're the authorized people and everyone else is a flake, and you have degrees of flakeness with David Icke, who I personally, I love and respect for his boldness and what have you, is kind of uber flake. Is the Queen a lizard? I have no idea. I don't think I'm going to lose much sleep over it. But it's you can't just say David's a nutter. He may or may not be right. We simply don't have the means to sort of test it. So we can apply the same kind of scientific principles, or logical principles, or analytical principles, and perhaps I'll give a few examples of those in due course. But the important thing is that science is operating from the ground up, from what it can show, from what it can prove, and there is a grey area where you can still be analytical, you can still be rational, you can still have a burden of proof, but it's beyond current scientific experiment. And if a New Ager sort of tries to point out that, gosh, well, when you talk about energy and this and that, we talk about energy and this and that, and the high priests of science, the acolytes, go, well, oh gosh, that's pseudoscience, you're a nutter. We have the truth, you're a nutter. Well, pseudoscience, I tend to think of myself as being interested in metaphysics. Pseudoscience and metaphysics mean the same thing. The only difference is that pseudoscience is intended to be a derogatory term, and metaphysics, effectively the same thing, is a little bit more neutral or positive even. So, first thing just to highlight in this video is really that science is limiting by choice, and it is a religion by choice, and it was born of a religion and it has become a religion in its own right, and like all religions, it's pretty damn powerful, it's pretty damn wealthy, and a lot of people believe in it. But you might say true science is ultimately no more than rational thinking, rational analysis, and that is not limited by what people call science. In other words, so you have science with a capital S, a bit like America with a capital A that goes to its wars, and with a small a has 300 million people going about their lives. Well, science with a capital S has its priests and its dogma and its shutting down of people that say things that they're not comfortable with, and there's science with a small s, which is just rational and analytical thought. So we'll leave that there for now.